C, May 30th, 2024. It's 6:35 p.m. All commissioners are present this evening with the exception of Mrs. Doris Flores Brooks. First order of business is approval of the minutes of March 27th, 2024 and April 25th, 2024. Do I have a motion? Subject to technical correction. All in favor say aye. Aye. The motion carries. Thank you. Why don't we start with, let's start with the port. PAG docket 2402, petition for contract review relative to the purchase of 9 terminal yard tractors. We have an ALJ report and a proposed order. Joe Pett, I believe this is yours.
If you receive it. Mr. Chair, this matter is before the commission pursuant to a PAG's request for review and approval of an invitation for bid of contract award to American Material Handling, also known as AMH, so that it can purchase 9 terminal yard tractors. PAG seeks approval of this bid award to AMH in the amount of $1,791,327. And this award and contract stems from PAG IFP 10-3, which solicited the terminal yard tractors. And based on these bid specifications, the IFP sought The IFP sought 9 terminal yard tractors specifically for a Kalmar Ottawa T2 4x2 Department of Transportation and EPA certified tractor. It also required 6-speed automatic transmissions, 200 horsepower turbo diesel engines, and according to PAG, 3 bids were received, and PAG determined that AMH submitted a qualifying bid as well as a bid that met the requirements of the Build America, Buy America Act, which mandates generally that the product be manufactured in the United States. And as a result of certain negotiations, PAG was then able to have the U.S. Maritime Administration help fund the purchase of these tractors. Specifically, with the support of the Maritime Administration, PAG's acquisition of these tractors will be funded under an American Maritime Marine Highway Grant, which allows for an 80-20 cost share to PAG. We reviewed AMH's bid submission, and based on AMH's offer, these tractors will cost $194,699 per tractor, which includes about a $28,000 door-to-door delivery. The offer also included a 2% discount on the tractor's base price, which amounts to about a $30,000 discount off the cost of the 9 tractors. And so after all applicable taxes and fees, the total cost for all 9 tractors is about $1,791,327. Mr. Chair, we reviewed the proposed contract for these tractors, and we saw that the contract contained provisions guaranteeing that the tractors will be free from manufacturing defects and will be subject to any warranty period. The proposed contract also contained requirements on licensing, termination, liquidated damages, among other standard contract provisions that protect PAG and the ratepayers in the event of any non-performance. The contract also contained provisions concerning federal requirements such as compliance with the Federal Clean Air Act, prohibitions on lobbying and whistleblower protections, etc. And as mentioned earlier, the purchase of these 9 tractors is subject to an 80/20 cost share through the maritime grant. And based on my math, this purchase will only cost PG, and PG can correct me if I'm wrong, about $358,265, with the rest of the cost paid for by Merit. The request is also supported by a resolution issued by PG's Board of Directors, and we are certainly happy to see that there's a full complement of the Board of Directors at this time. And in the resolution, the board approved the purchase of the 9 tractors, as well as approving the $1,791,327 cost for the tractors. And so, Mr. Chairman, based on this record, the procurement of the terminal yard tractors and subsequent award to AMH appeared proper and reasonable, and that the contract for the purchase of these tractors appeared reasonable, prudent, and necessary. And without a doubt, these yard tractors are an essential component of PAG's operations. And since the purchase of these tractors is subject to an 80/20 cost share, PAG has prudently utilized this opportunity to further improve its operations, specifically its cargo handling capabilities. And so based on this record, Mr. Chairman, I recommend approval of the bid award for the 9 tractors at a total cost of $1,791,327.
Thank you, Jeff. Rory, any comments?
Just, good evening, Mr. Chairman. Roy Bishop with the Port Authority and Mark Cabarrus with the Port Authority's procurement. Just available for any questions you may have, and we thank the LJ for that recommendation.
How many tractors do you have in the yard right now?
Right now, with the last time tractors were purchased were about 2017. I want to say that we just recently acquired 4 new tractors through a USCPA grant, and it was a 1-for-1 exchange. Those landed maybe a couple of weeks ago. And now with these 9 tractors, it brings us to 13. I think we have about 12 tractors, I want to say. So this certainly would go a long way with the yard equipment replacement and acquisition program by the use of federal funds. This is 80/20. The US EPA DARA program was a 75/25 match. And so we're doing everything we can to avail of these federal resources. And we want to also note for the record that this is a federal GSA procurement. We are procuring locally and through Fred GSA, and whenever there's a local bidder that responds, if their price is higher than what the Fed GSA provides, we have to, we yield to the Fed GSA catalog. So that's what this is here.
What's the life cycle of these?
Yeah, 8 years.
8 years?
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions?
The details of the grant, when does the funds come in, kick in on purchase, on delivery, or a year later? When does the 80% come in?
It's on a reimbursable basis, so it comes in at the time the equipment landed, then we have to submit for the reimbursement.
What's the reimbursement timeline traditionally?
It's I think the expiration is in 2026, but when we make the purchase, the reimbursement comes in afterwards. So it's about closing it out, and then
When it's closed out, like 3 months later, a year later? Yeah, historically?
We're of course at the mercy of NARAD, but we have those things in the pipeline, but I couldn't tell you, Commissioner, at this point what that turnaround time is, but it's not so bad so that we're complaining about the reimbursement process. It happens. It comes to us.
Anything in the contract at all, Mike? Anything of interest in the contract?
Wondering, can you explain at federal GSA, those 4 tractors that were acquired that way? I saw that in your, I'm just trying to understand how that factored into the overall.
Well, I was just pointing out that with your approval, with these 9 tractors, it'll complement the 4 tractors that we recently received through the US EPA grant. It's a DARA program.
Okay.
And the tractors that we're required to have they have to be ultra low sulfur diesel, so they have to be, environmentally better than the ones that we offer. And so when those 4 tractors land, we have to bore a hole in 4 tractors that we have running operations, so it's a 1-for-1 exchange. And then we have to show evidence that we took down 4 tractors to receive these 4 tractors. But in this case, with the 9 tractors, it's not a US EPA DARA program, and there's no requirement to down 9 tractors. And so we added these 9 tractors. We could spend time on preventive maintenance on the existing fleet that we have.
Rory, just real quick, regarding the tractors, how many tractors has ag had operational at any given time? So right now, you're doing 9 plus 4, you're 13.
Yeah, I want to say 12, right? I mean, generally, there are 12 tractors. I can get that information. There are 12 tractors, I believe, in general rotation. But that's all, they're being operated all at one time, and when 1 or 2 go down, then that lets us, brings us below the minimum.
Right, so you're getting an extra run for backup.
Yeah, and now we have a yard equipment acquisition program. They're gonna be doing regular preventive maintenance. We're looking at replacing out these equipment every 5 years generally, and so this is the course that we want to put the Port Authority on. We recently received 4 Taylor equipment, 2 topics, 1 topic, and I think, sorry, 5, 2 topics and 3 sides. We got that during the MAWARs. That was an emergency procurement we did, but that was also funded through an RF program. And so even with the topics here, at one point we go from anywhere from 4 to 1, and then back to 3 for whatever those mechanical issues are.
If you're doing a 5-year replacement, you guys, since the lifespan is 7 or 8, do you have like some kind of used, or you guys resell to, for funds, for funding purposes? Do you ever resell tractors, the used ones?
We've never been in that position yet, but certainly the only time we're gonna down an equipment is if it's inoperable. We have certified mechanics there. They do a really good job at prolonging the service life of the equipment. So even though we're looking at an 8-year span, chances are it's gonna run longer than the lifespan, the normal lifespan, because they do a lot of rebuilding of the equipment, of the mechanical work that's needed. I've seen the guys, and they would repaint yard equipment because it's in really bad condition, and they would almost rebuild it. And that's the kind of work that they do with preventive maintenance, corrosion control. But we're not at that point yet where we have the luxury of saying, okay, we've replaced this equipment and we can resell it to maybe the other islands or to other businesses on Guam. Unfortunately, we're not there yet. We're struggling with the yard equipment that we have now and trying to find means to replace it.
Since it was the 9 plus the 4, you have 13 now, but you're gonna have the most you've ever had. So no more tractors till 2032?
No,
Is that what you're saying?
No, I think they have some older units still available too, yeah. So you have more than 30, you will have more than 30.
Yeah, the 4 plus not this new 9?
Yeah.
I actually went into the yard to take a look at those existing units, at least the ones that they've been maintaining, and the older tractors. And the motors may be still running because, like Rory said, our guys are really hard in maintenance. But the bodies of these tractors, you can see like right through them. You can see the holes through the door, and it's bad. So, it's what.
Okay. Location sensitive.
If I could say, for the record, we have 23 tractors on hand, 7 are in maintenance, and so 16 are available. Generally, we have around 12 to 16 that are in rotation. And as Mark pointed out, those tractors that are on rotation need to be put down.
We all know about aging assets. Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
How often do we use the federal GSA, the MES? How often do you use that avenue as far as the bidders? Because you had to go through all of them to determine whether or not they qualified, right, for this bid. So how often do we use that service?
But GSA? Okay, so what happens is we put the solicitation out and we invite as much local vendors we know of. We have a distribution list that shows, hey, we give it to Pacific Limited, Far East Equipment, we give it to everybody we can. We exhaust it as much as possible. In 2 instances of the solicitation for the 4 tractors, when we initially made the attempt, we received bids that were grossly overpriced in terms of what the grant would allow us to obtain. So when a grant says, hey, you got to get quantity of 4, that's what we're targeting. Sometimes when we get these bids, it looks like we can only afford 2 of them, at least from our local providers. So then we have to kind of make a decision. Well, look, we have this Fed GSA, and you know what, we could get the 4. And so we go even further as to reaching out to the grantor and getting their permission to say, yes, please proceed.
We reach out locally first to see if anyone else
Absolutely.
qualified and be able to
Absolutely,
provide it
yes.
at a reasonable cost. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner, may I add, if you have a local vendor that responds and you have a Fed GSA catalog that names the price, it's not unusual for procurement to go back to the local bidder and say, by statute, you can come down. If they're willing to come down within 10% of what that Fed GSA price is, then we would buy local. But in this case, in the case of the tractors, they weren't willing to come down even knowing what the Fed GSA price was. So they do have that opportunity.
Just out of curiosity, who was the provider for the GSA tractors? What was it?
American Material Handling. And previous tractors that were purchased in 2016 that Jim brought up was purchased from Far East Equipment. Far East Equipment is the authorized.
Most of the local vendors should have GSA pricing. It's just one
Yeah.
national, international vendors. It's a fortunate thing.
Yeah, they have access to it, and it's unfortunate that when we do put Fed GSA pricing, they should kind of work with their manufacturer, but I think a lot of times because it's so difficult on Guam to do business, they gotta mark it up, and I totally get where they're coming from.
We did a markup anyways, from the 29,000 for door to door. You took into consideration for shipping, so.
Yeah,
There could have been
I mean, even when we looked at the Fed GSA schedule, they were providing more than the required specifications, galvanized, lower end, all those things, and I was kind of surprised, like, wow, we didn't even ask for that, but that's coming in with a lower price. So we kind of have to
Mr. Chair, move to approve docket 2402.
Is there a second to Peter's motion? Second. Mike seconds. All in favor, say aye. Aye. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next, we're going to skip ahead to GWA. GWA docket 2407, approval of joint procurement for comprehensive support services for applications and integration technologies for GWA, GPA, PAG, and GIAA. We have a legal counsel report and a proposed order. Anthony.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I'm going to have to recuse on the 3 GWA docket items for this evening because GWA is a client of our law firm in pending litigation.
Thank you, Mike. Mr. Pangilinan is recused from all GWA matters this evening. Go ahead, Anthony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in this case, GWA is requesting alongside or in coalition with the Port Authority of Guam and GIAA and GPA to basically obtain authorization to issue a solicitation to procure support services for the proper operation and maintenance of the Oracle Cloud Services, E1, and other integrated applications that GWA, GPA, and PAG, as well as GIA, are currently using. So the existing support contracts for each of these agencies is expiring, and each of the agencies have a need to procure a comprehensive support services to ensure the continued operation and maintenance of these critical systems. At the time that I did this, this is one of the infamous Rojas petitions that lacked the approved CCU resolution. And so, however, they did assure me that they were confident that the CCU would approve the draft solicitation, the draft resolution that they included in their petition. Today at about 4 p.m. or so, the approved, or I did receive a copy of the approved resolution, and so I can confirm that the CCU has approved management's authority to issue this solicitation, subject, of course, to the PUC's approval. So, in essence, GWA correctly estimates that this contract will exceed the amount of $1 million, and so basically the contract review protocol applies, and the PUC would have to give its approval for GWA to issue a solicitation. Of course, if the contract is awarded, they would have to come back and have that contract approved by the PUC as well. Now, I've determined that GWA's estimated costs of the comprehensive support services are reasonable. GWA is soliciting for a contract with a 5-year initial term and 5 optional 1-year terms, about a 10-year contract. And they estimate that it would cost about $262,788 annually. They're anticipating it would cost that because that's kind of what they're paying for these services right now. And if so, basically, if the entire contract is used, it's estimated the new contract would cost about $2.6 million or so. GWA's solicitation for the comprehensive support services is prudent. GWA, GPA, PAG, and GIA plan to use their combined purchasing power to attain the most cost-effective support arrangement for the comprehensive support services. And I also found that GWA's solicitation for the comprehensive support services is necessary. Basically, all these agencies require the comprehensive support services to ensure the proper operation and maintenance of their respective Oracle Cloud infrastructure, EI, and other programs. And just a reminder, because this is the first time that this has been before the PUC, but these programs are critical to their financial transactions, inventory and asset management, work order management, human resources management, and purchasing operations. Therefore, the solicitation for these services is necessary, and I recommended approval. Recommend that the PUC approves GWA's petition, and I did attach a proposed order for the PUC's consideration, subject to your questions. Thank you.
Any comments from GWA?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. Chris Fudasi with Guam Works Authority. Thank you, commissioners, for hearing this petition this evening. I'll take full responsibility for the board. Mr. Rojas just was doing what I had asked. Our contract did expire on May 1st, and that's why it's before you this evening. I know the port as well is coming up on their expiration. So that's why we're anxious to get this procurement out in June if possible. Just to add a few things to what Mr. Camacho had said, GWA will lead this procurement on behalf of all the agencies, so we'll put out the tender and see it through. Of course, all the agencies will participate in it in the evaluation of whoever submits a proposal. As you're aware, I think GPA, GWA, and the port all upgraded our ERP systems in 2021, so about 3 years ago. So we've been on the current systems for roughly 3 years. And now our contracts are coming to an end, and so because we're all using the same system and we're all using it in the cloud, it just is prudent for us to go together in on a contract and see if we can get the best deal possible by combining our purchasing power. And we believe that this is going to be a very, very attractive contract to potential vendors. Just one, because it's going to combine 4 agencies and their needs, as well as the length of the contract, which is a 5-year base plus 5 one-year options. And the reason we chose to go with the 5 years and the 5 one-year options is because the end-of-life support for the system, the U1 system, is 2035. So this coincides with that end-of-life procurement and will allow us, if necessary, the leeway to utilize that same contractor to either continue to support us as we approach that end-of-life contract, or help us navigate into what we'll need to move into after the end-of-life contract. And just to put you at ease, my expectation is that Oracle is going to extend that beyond 2035. They like to put a date out on their products for end-of-life, but E1 has already been extended 5 years. So when we first upgraded, the end of life was in 2030. They've since extended it to 2035. My expectation is probably in the next few years, they'll extend it to another 5 years, but there's no guarantee on that. So it's possible it could go end of life by 2035. The scope of work for this contract, there's 5 major components. The first is support and troubleshooting on the Oracle Cloud infrastructure, and also the J.D. Edwards CNC support. So that's essentially the back office stuff that the IT folks generally take care of: the servers, the software upgrades or updates to the servers. And then we also have a component for application functional support, and that support is for the end users. So as the end users navigate and use the system, they'll be able to use the application support as needed. We also have application development support, and this is one area where I think we're going to see the most efficiency gains and the best use of combining purchasing power. As we use the system, we realize that there's ways we can make it more efficient through minor developments with the application. So if we're all doing the same developments, all moving in the same direction, we can split the cost of those developments and all be able to use them to achieve greater efficiency. The fourth component of the scope of work is managing negotiation and maximization of our software agreements and optimizing our software asset utilization. So when we did our upgrade, the vendor that was working with us did the negotiation with Oracle on our licensing, and the Oracle licensing is very complex and complicated, and if you're not familiar with all the different products that they have and how they work together, a lot of times you'll end up paying a lot more money than if you have somebody that knows that and can negotiate for you. And what a lot of these larger tech companies do is they actually hire people that used to work at Oracle, and they are the ones that manage the negotiations. And so that's kind of what that's what that scope of work is about. And then the last item in the scope of work is implementation of software upgrades or replacements. And so this would mainly cover the Guam Airport Authority, who is still using the J.D. Edwards legacy system. They have yet to upgrade to E1. So this component would allow them to enter into an agreement to upgrade their system. But it would also allow us to utilize their services for any other software that integrates with E1 that's necessary for any of the organizations. And so that would also allow for that. As was mentioned, we think that this is going to exceed $1 million over the 5 years. And we expect to issue this RFP in June, hopefully with a notice to proceed in August 2024, and it is a revenue-funded contract. I can answer any questions.
Any questions from the commissioners? Rowena, go ahead.
Chris, if I remember 3 years ago, I remember the agencies were coming in one at a time, and we saw that they were using the same program, right, Oracle, but they were all going through different vendors.
Correct.
So you guys obviously decided to group together to use that buying power that we discussed.
Yes.
Who was the one that, was it the Port or GWA that saved the 30 grand or something when we were coming into that, when we were discussing this?
I believe both organizations had savings. So the port had an initial savings, and then the PUC requested that we go back and ask for additional savings, which we were provided the 30,000.
Yeah, very good. So when, the airport though is now going into E1, they don't have E1,
They do
correct?
not at this time.
So will GWA then be responsible to make sure that these terms are met, or do you have a joint committee that will review and make sure that all the terms of the contract are met, and who would be the one to mediate should something not come through from Oracle?
So we've yet to determine it, but we've had initial discussions where there'll probably be kind of like a project management office where there'd be a representative from each organization to kind of meet regularly to, go through the different things. But as far as handling enforcement, I think GWA will handle the majority of that. Each agency would be responsible for paying their own bills, things like that. But as far as making sure the contract terms are adhered to, we would try to channel that through one organization. And so we'll have an MOU between all four organizations kind of outlining who's responsible for what, and if at all any compensation would be due to the others for those services.
Is this the first time that the utilities have come together, the agencies have come together to do such a type of bid?
I think it is for the port and GWA and GPA in the airport, but GWA and GPA have done this previously. So our customer care and billing, which is what we use for our billing, is a joint procurement, and we use that system together.
Very good, thank you.
Hey, Chris, in the instance of one agency not paying or taking care of their end, are all responsible at that point? And does Oracle have the ability to just shut the system down until one is paid?
Well, these services wouldn't be, so if somebody wasn't paying their bills, they would just not get the support services that are in the contract until they
Or that particular agency?
For that particular agency. It wouldn't mean the system would shut down and stop working. It's just that they could potentially run into problems if something came up that they couldn't fix on their own, and they didn't have the support behind it to remedy that.
And as you guys look at the total proposal for the bid, you can break down as to like how much per agency is paying, and you can kind of compare and see if it's comparable to what you're paying versus like where the discounts are going to be passed on. Is it just, if they give you one big discount, where does it go? Does it go to GWA? Does it go
right? So the RFP was put together with the flexibility of the proposers to kind of be creative with how they want to price it. And so, one option they could do is to say, we'll have a ticketing system for functional support. So every time one of your agencies puts in a ticket for somebody to help with, I need help with how to process something in HR, we put in a ticket, and that could be a fixed price. Because there's four of us, they could fix the price at $25 a ticket, and then it would just be you would pay on the volume of tickets that you enter. So that's one model that they could propose. So it's yet to be determined, but I anticipate that the discounts will be built into the proposals, and it would be spread equally across all the agencies. That would be my expectation. And of course, it's an RFP, so we can negotiate that piece if it turns out that it's more favorable to one over the other.
I love your optimism on the end of life part being extended, extended, because typically in software companies, they try to get you to upgrade to their next brightest and, shinier
We're
package.
hopeful. I mean, when we did our upgrade, we were wanting to get 15 to 20 years out of it. If it ends in 2035, that'll be the 15-year mark, essentially. So we would have gotten our expected use out of the system, but we're hopeful that it'll extend beyond that.
Anything else? Your motion? Alina makes a motion, who's second? Joe seconds, all in favor, say aye. Aye. The motion carries. Next item is GWA docket 2408, petition for approval of year 4 and year 5 task orders for professional utility services contract. We have an ALJ report and a proposed order. Fred?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. So when my report was first prepared on May 27th, there were a few documents that GWA had not submitted for this matter. The matter, by the way, is a petition for review and approval of 2 separate task orders for year 4 and 5 of the water loss control professional services contract with eSource. In the petition that GWA filed, we had a year 4 task order, but not a year task, 5th year task order, which was pointed out in the ALJ report. But on the 28th of this month, task order number 5 was filed, so you now have that. In addition, at the time the original report was prepared by me, I had to note that we had no final GWA resolution approving the year 4 and 5 task orders, but that was filed as of yesterday, and it appears to be the same as what was filed in the original petition, only signed now. So we do have the necessary documents to proceed ahead. As far as the background of this matter, I submitted a pretty extensive background in my report. This concerns the district metered areas and is a part of the GWA water loss program. Originally, this was set up to establish district meter areas where inflow of water, outflow could be accurately measured, where it would be easier to determine when leaks occurred, and originally contemplated that 36 district meter areas would be established. I'll get into that more, but the background sets forth the history of this, and I actually took much of it from the background that ALJ and Conrad submitted in GWA docket 23-11. So this is actually a 5-year program. The DMA contract with eSource started in 2021, and it initially came to the PUC in docket 2311 for approval of the 3rd year proposal for the contract. And that was because prior to that time, the contract review threshold of $1 million had not yet been met. But in docket 2311, the PUC approved the requested increase of $422,289 for the 3rd year funding for the eSource contract. And at that point, the total contract price was the amount of $1,207,752. So clearly under the contract review protocol, this contract requires review because as a multi-year contract, does exceed the $1 million. Here, GWA is requesting funding of $401,724 for the year 4 task order and funding of $441,896.40 for the year 5 task order. I'm sorry, actually, no, it's it's less now. They changed the amount, so it's about 419,000 at this point. Gotta go back to the order. Yeah, the total for year 5 is now, it was changed a few days ago, but it's now $419,985.40. I should note that over the 5 years, there were a lot of increases in the contract price. Some years 10%. I don't know if it was every year, but there were a number of increases. And for the year 5 order, it's noted in the task order that there's a 15% increase in original hourly rates and expense budget. That's because of inflation and overall price increases that eSource said it was facing. So if the PUC approved years 4 and 5 task orders, the total funding for the contract for years 1 to 5 would be $2,029,461.40. I believe that GWA has justified its request for extension of this contract and approval of the year 4 and 5 task orders. This is a continuation of GWA's efforts to reduce non-water revenue and make improvements in the system where service delivery has been below standard. It's going to be funded from GWA operations and maintenance budget and internally funded CIP. The task orders for year 4 indicate additional work on the tasks that were contained in the first 3-year task orders. And that includes review of water audit data, water loss program management services, transient data logging, and data analysis, and various annual expenses. Task Order 5 really continues all of the same tasks that have been a part of this project from the beginning. The only difference really between year 5 and year 4 is that year 5 has the additional escalation of a 15% cost. Now, in the past, both the PUC consultant Georgetown and the PUC itself have supported a continuation of the eSource contract. In docket 2311, the PUC held that the Commission should support GWA's efforts to implement essential components of its water loss program and permit GWA to continue to work with eSource, who provides GWA with technical assistance as a water loss control specialist company experienced in implementing DMAs. Some interesting discussions came out in the Consolidated Commission work session at GWA on May 21st. GWA did at that time present some further justifications for approval of task orders for years 4 and 5. At the work session, GWA Assistant General Manager of Engineering, Jeanette Lavauta Owens, informed the CCU commissioners that since the eSource contract and the water loss program were launched in 2021, a total of 606 water leaks and 25 illegal connections have been uncovered. Chairman Duenas also stated that the DMA's help in locating leaks and will identify where funds go first on water line replacement. So it appears that the eSource contract has been a substantial benefit to GWA and its ratepayers. The program allows GWA to monitor water flows into and out of each DMA and to determine, quote, real physical water losses. Now, with the district meter areas, originally there were 36 that were supposed to be built. I believe at this point 22 have been built. One may still be in progress, I'm not sure, but there are 14 that have not yet been built. So those apparently are not included. The cost of building those out are not included in this contract. And it seems that what GWA intends to do with those is to fund them over the next 5 years for the CIP program from 2025 through 2029. And there are a lot of steps, I believe, that have to be undertaken before those DMAs can be completed. There's various procurements, pressure zone realignment, the design phase for the DMAs, and then the construction phase. So I'm not quite sure when all of those are going to be. It seems that'll be a process over the next 5 years. During the work session, Commissioner Mike Nunziaco raised a very good question. He asked the management of GWA, what's the return on investment on the DMA program? Now, I think that the GWA management had to be frank about it, which appears to be that the DMA program has not itself led to any substantial reduction in water loss. So there's no way apparently at present to quantify an actual reduction. But I would agree with the statements that doesn't mean the program's not very useful. As I pointed out earlier, Chairman Duenas, for example, stated that it has helped GWA to identify where the leaks are, and it will also be very useful as GWA enters its line replacement program. In the current 5-year rate case that's pending, GWA, I believe, has proposed to spend about $130 million for 9 years. And what they seem to be contending and suggesting is that it's really that stage of the CIP program that will be water loss mitigation. These, of course, will be things that occur in the future. But nonetheless, I did conclude that I think there have been positive benefits from the program. It should continue. There is a long history of use to support as well as its facilities. I've prepared an order with provisions that would approve the amount of $401,724 for the year 4 test, and for year 5, $419,985. So the total spending for this contract, authorized funding, if you approve, would be $2,029,460.
There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple points. The ALJ mentioned the scope of work essentially being repeated for years 4 and 5. I'd point out that in year 3, with the help of WSO, we discovered that in addition to the expected leaks that the leak detection program and the DMA program were allowing us to uncover, with their assistance and analysis, we also came to the conclusion that we seem to have a pressure transient issue, which means essentially there are events that occur within the distribution system for various reasons, which we're still trying to find out, which cause pressure spikes and then main breaks, which contribute to our water losses. So included in year 4 is additional analysis for those pressure transient issues to help us get a better handle on it and figure out how to best control it. So that is kind of an additional task order or additional scope element in years 4 and 5, which was not there for years 1 through 3. The goal, as Mr. Harecki mentioned, was that we would be done with the DMA implementation by year 3. That was our initial expectation. However, this contract is for professional consulting services and not for the construction. So it was always our intention to make the necessary physical improvements to the distribution system to allow the metering to go in as part of other projects that we have been undertaking. The pressure zone realignment being the primary one, because the pressure zone realignment allows us to put in equipment to control the flow between parts of the distribution system. We aligned the DMAs to kind of coincide with where those pressure control stations are. And so as we're constructing these new pressure control stations, that's where we're putting in the necessary vaults and metering equipment to allow the DMA systems to work. We have not completed all 36 DMA areas and because we have not completed all phases of the pressure zone realignment. The other type of projects where we anticipated we would undertake some of this DMA work was with our tank projects. As we put in some of these new reservoirs, valving is required to make sure they function properly within a distribution system, that the flows in and out of the tank work appropriately with the hydraulics. And for those areas where we do have vaults going in with control valves, we would also put in metering equipment. And so we've been using these two types of CIP projects to put in the physical improvements that are necessary. They were never intended to be part of the WSO or e-source contract. So we still are moving in that direction. It's just taking us a little longer than anticipated. And as the ALJ pointed out, we have included funding for that in our upcoming 5-year CIP. And I guess the last thing that I would want to mention is that the services that WSO provides or eSource provides includes someone on the ground assisting our leak detection teams, and it also includes some training with our folks. Now, when all 36 DMAs are in place, the goal was to conduct sweeps of the entire distribution system 3 times per year. And that would require us to increase the number of leak detection teams from our current level of 2 to 3 fully staffed leak detection teams. So there's additional personnel that are going to be required in order to fully implement this, and that is also kind of included in our 5-year CIP and projected operating expenses for the next 5 years to ramp that up, to complete the 3 teams, but then also to replace the body on the ground that WSO provides for the active management of those 3 leak detection teams. Our intent is to train one of our operators to take the place of that WSO person so that we are actively managing this by the time all 3 teams are in place. So we are working to do that to reduce the future scope requirements of any consultant support and kind of undertake this on our own moving forward. So I just wanted to mention that that is in our plans as we move forward with the contract.
Thanks, Miguel. The ultimate fix would appear to be basically to change the whole system out over time, rather than just repair leaks here and there.
Yeah, and you can, if you've been here long enough, you know that, for example, just up the street in Hyundai in Totu, when that subdivision went in, all the original piping, it's still there. How long has that been there? If it's been close to 40, 50 years already, those pipes are beyond their useful service life. So as we go through and undertake these pipe replacement programs, whole-scale kind of neighborhood replacements is what we're targeting, with, of course, focusing on the ones that have the highest payback, neighborhoods where we're purchasing Navy water as an example. Those would be priorities. And then on the 2-inch line replacements, the galvanized pipe that were laid by PUAG decades ago, just kind of shallow buried pipe and has now become problematic. Those will also be priority projects.
Questions? We have a lot of those.
I'm pleased to know there's going to be training, part of the workforce development. Are you having any difficulty building up your teams right now?
So we have lost staff that we trained. They've gone to work for the Navy or private contractors. So that is always a challenge, continues to be a challenge. Fortunately, the guys that we're grooming to kind of lead the whole team, they have remained, and we are encouraging them. I'm trying to keep them encouraged to stick with it, and also, make sure that they're properly compensated for the work that they're doing. So staffing is still an issue. Believe it or not, keeping the equipment in the ground is an issue. We lost one of the meters that we put into place. It was stolen right down here in Assen, so right off of the pipe. So, those types of issues continue to be a challenge for us.
So do you have an apprenticeship program related to this particular project, or looking at apprentices?
So we have in development the apprenticeship program that will focus on the different series of positions, water distribution system operator as an example. The folks that are water distribution operators are moving into the leak detection with additional training. So the apprenticeship program will take care of getting them their basic certifications, but the specialized training for the leak detection will be provided after they go through the apprenticeship program. Yes.
Just kind of walking through I'm a little confused on the timing or the gap between the contract services. Right, so right now, in existing services, there's, let's say you found, they said 606 water leaks and 25 more illegal connections. On the water leak side, are you, and this is kind of more like a Band-Aid fix, because you're saying that the real issue is going to have to be fixing the whole pipeline in that section, or are you able to identify these leaks, fix them, and then still see some kind of realized gain from net water losses, preventing it?
So with the monitoring that we are doing within the DMAs, so we just as some background, we monitor the DMA to determine what the leakage rates are when nobody is using the system, and when we see that those are elevated, that's where we kind of focus our efforts in going in and doing the leak detection. The leaks that we find using the leak detection are not leaks that anybody else will see. If we don't go out and actively detect them, they will go on undetected and get worse and worse and worse. It's not like ones that you see on the side of the road that are reportable, right? Those ones are handled by dispatch, and those are an entirely different set of numbers from the ones.
These are like leaks underground.
Yes, that otherwise would not have been found. And so when we make those repairs within a DMA, we do see a reduction. However, what happens is that reduction in losses is not sustained because leaks pop up elsewhere within the same DMA because of the age of the pipe. And the data that's coming back in the field in the form of the reports, the work order completion reports that are completed by the operators and that do the repairs, the data that's coming in as to the condition of the pipe, the material of the pipe, all of that is pointing to the fact that it's just beyond its useful service life. Right. So this is what has led us to ramping up the request that we have made for line replacement, capital improvement projects.
Right, so that was the gap I was trying to figure out, like how you're paying the contract services to identify, but it's so old that you plug here, obviously,
right.
You're just doing this, right? So at the end, it's almost seems to be more beneficial to actually have this kind of contract, identify it while you guys have the pipes in place already, or have that ability to replace them right then and there, because time is, I guess time is money in this sense, because a week later, 2 weeks later, it's something else.
Yeah.
Right, so it's difficult, and I kind of appreciate the challenges you guys are going through. But you anticipate this contract being 4 or 5 years, and then you'll have these new over 130 million for the line replacement, right? Part and after this 5 years, right? Somewhere down.
So the 5-year contract is just for them to guide us through the process of setting up the DMAs and monitoring and managing them, using the software to do that.
Okay.
As I mentioned, once our intention is that at the end of the 5-year period, we will have a GWA body that is doing the same things that the WSO consultant on site is doing. So we will have that capability in-house to continue at least the majority of the scope that is currently in this 5-year contract.
So, yeah, so the answer, it is beneficial to continue on with this contract because of that purpose.
Yes.
Thank you.
Your on-site consultants, if you have 3 teams, there's going to be 3 teams, 3 consultants available? Only one consultant?
There's just one guy who is kind of leading the 2 teams that we have now.
Okay.
And one of the leaders of that team, we are grooming, who shows the most promise and has exhibited the most initiative. He's the one we're grooming to take that guy's place.
Why on earth would somebody steal one of your meters?
Why would somebody steal an ambulance? I don't know. To sell it for scrap, I'm really not sure.
Yeah. There are a lot of,
Hopefully it's not the Navy. I don't think it's.
is there a lot of brass in the meter, copper?
Yeah, and these ones also are digital, so there's some electronics associated with it as well.
Anything else?
One more question. I may have missed it, but how many employees make the team?
3 employees, 1 lead, and 2 operators. So total will be 9 for 3 teams plus the lead guy for the section. So 10.
10 for the division. Okay.
And I'm considering, because of all the data that system generates, we will have some existing management analysts kind of supporting the monitoring and the calculation and the number crunching and all that.
It's a good program.
There a move to approve GWA docket 2408?
Thank you, Pete. Is there a second? Those seconds, all in favor, say aye. The motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. And there was supposed to be GWA docket 2409, but that's going to be postponed to a later date, right? So
That's correct, Mr. Chair. On Tuesday, GWA notified my office that there was a protest filed. And as soon as legal counsel for GWA notifies me that the protest has been resolved and that the original award still remains, then we will issue a recommendation or report on that particular docket, Mr. Chair.
thanks, Joseph.
Mr. Chair, before we move on to the next agency or item on the agenda, I just wanted to make a small remark because I feel compelled to respond to the 2 ALJs who have reported on the respective docket 2407 and 2408. We want to say we thank, of course, the PUC, its ALJs, the ALJ staff, the PUC staff, and of course the commissioners for the accommodation extended to allow GWA some time to come into compliance. It's clear from the ALJ's report that they are diligent. They begin their review of our dockets early enough to ensure that everyone timely receives these dockets, their reports, and a proposed order so reviews can be complete. So we recognize the rule. We've never asked for any exemptions to the rule. We thank the PUC again for the accommodations extended, and we will certainly comply with the rule.
Thanks, Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item was to be GPA docket number 2416, petition to approve the energy conversion agreement amendment for the Ukadu power plant. But that one has been delayed also, correct, Joseph?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. GPA has been so kind to meet with me regarding presentation on the current amendments to the ECA. However, a report should be ready by the next meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Next item is GPA docket number 2417, petition of the Guam Power Authority to enter into a month-to-month extension for its professional printing, mailing, processing, and other services due to ongoing litigation. We have a legal counsel report and a proposed order. Anthony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this particular contract is no stranger to the PUC. In fact, when I teach procurement classes, I often use this particular case as an example of why we need to amend the procurement law. particularly the automatic stay. So in any event, this is their printing, excuse me, sorry, my phone just went dead. There we go. So this is their printing or professional printing, mailing, and processing services contract. This is the contract that GPA relies upon to create and mail 50,000 power bills a month. So this is critical for GPA's revenue. In terms of the history, well, the original contract dates back to April the 6th of 2016. It was just a 5-year contract. It was a 1-year initial term with 4 one-year options. That contract had expired. GPA had solicited for a new contract in December of 2020. It received 1 bid in response, and GPA found that that bid did not meet the, or was not responsive, and they had to issue a second IFP. Now, GPA negotiated in that period of time an 8-month extension of the existing contract, so there wouldn't be a gap in these services, and that was approved on April the, excuse me. So on May 13, 2021, GPA issued GPA RFP 21-002 for these same services. It received 3 offers and selected InfoSend as the most qualified offeror. And it selected Graphic Center, who was the original contractor of the vendor. And it selected Graphic Center as the second most qualified offeror. On July 29, 2021, the PUC authorized GPA to exercise a month-to-month contract extension up to 8 months. On August the 30th, 2021, Graphic Center filed a procurement protest disputing getting second place. That protest was denied. This is one where Graphic Center then appealed to the OPA. GPA actually prevailed in the OPA case, but Graphic Center then appealed to the Superior Court of Guam. I believe that is where it currently sits. And as a result of going through the Superior Court of Guam from 2022 to the present, there have been one 12-month extension back in May 23rd of 2022. That, of course, expired in 2023. The PUC approved a second 1-year extension, which expires, I believe, tomorrow, May the 31st of 2024. So that's where we are. Now, of course, excuse me, the GPA must obtain the PUC's approval for any extension past May 31st, 2024. That's part of the order from last year. Basically, GPA's estimated $420,000 cost of the month-to-month contract extension if it lasts for 1 year, I found to be reasonable. And now, I gave a lot of numbers here. I'm just going to quickly run through that. But the bottom line is that if we look at the last extension from 2022 to 2023, the average monthly cost of that contract was about $12,500 cheaper than the prior 8-month contract extension. And, excuse me, and that was 2022 to 2023. For the 2023 extension, the $38,333 monthly cost was a little more than the prior docket. Here, GPA estimates that the next 12-month extension would cost $35,000 per month. Or excuse me, if we go to last year, 2023 to 2024, it would cost $38,333 a month. And here, for this extension, GPA estimates that this extension will cost $35,000 per month, which is $3,333 less than the last contract extension. Hence, the decrease in the cost of the next extension is a trend that's welcome, and I found the price for this extension to be reasonable. I also found that the extension is prudent. It will prevent a gap in the professional printing, mailing, processing, and other services as a result of the application of the automatic stay. However, if GPA makes another request for extension, I believe it's time that GPA should start looking at alternatives. It has two main ones, as I point out in my legal counsel report. First, it could estimate how much it would cost for them to perform these services internally. Now, we asked them that before, and they said they didn't have the people, they no longer had the equipment, so on and so forth, to do that. But considering that GPA has spent a total of $2.4 million on this particular contract with its extensions, $1.4 million was for the original contract term, $1.6 million or $1.06 million was for the last 2 years and 8 months extensions. If the next extension lasts for an entire 12-month period, the total contract cost would be $2.9 million. 1.4 of that amount would be for the extensions. So the extensions are starting to cost more than the original contract itself. And I believe that's one alternative. Can they do it internally? And I asked if they basically, or I recommend that if they ask for another extension, we require them to do that, figure out, give us an estimate of what it would cost, or what it would cost if we went to a digital billing system. So that's the other alternative. Now, nonetheless, right now, the way they're configured, the contract extension is necessary because they still are dependent on these services to bill, and they're dependent on their revenue stream for their operations. So I found that contract extensions, $420,000 cost is reasonable, prudent, and necessary, and I recommended that the PUC approve it with the condition that if GPA requests another extension, it must also provide an accurate estimate of what it would take GPA to perform these same services internally without contracting them out, or find alternative billing solutions such as digital billing. Now, I also want to state, I don't know if they're waiting on a judgment from the Superior Court. I believe that's the stage that the litigation is, but pursuant to Bank of Guam versus Reedy, that's an old procurement case. I believe it was heard both in the Superior Court of Guam and then the Supreme Court of Guam, but I believe in the Superior Court of Guam, then Judge Bradalio, who's now at the federal court, found, and I believe the Supreme Court may have agreed with him, that the automatic stay ends when the Superior Court of Guam issues its decision. That if the party wanted the automatic stay to continue while the appeal is pending before the Supreme Court, it would have to apply for an extension of the stay, the same as any other appeal or appeal of judgment or a stay of judgment pending the appeal. So it ends there. I'm just reminding GPA of those cases. Okay. So hopefully, if they get a decision and it's in their favor, Graphic Center would have to apply for that particular stay. It's up to your questions, commissioners. Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony. Anything from you, hearing it?
We actually just filed a status report, a joint status report in the Superior Court case yesterday. The plaintiff is supposed to be sending us a settlement offer tomorrow. If we don't agree with that, then we will agree to a briefing schedule. So we're not actually waiting for a judgment. We haven't even done the briefing yet. This delay was much caused by a discovery dispute That's already been taken care of. Now we have to try and get to settlement. If we can't, then we can do the briefing.
Thank you. Any comments from the commissioners or any questions? Mike?
Anthony, so I understand that sort of the contract review protocol and the basis for PUC approval of the extensions, but I'm just curious about the procurement laws. Their legal basis for the procurement law to just have extensions that are so far beyond the original contract date. Is it like on an emergency basis, or is it exigent circumstances kind of criteria that allows for just continued extensions beyond what was originally procured through the original procurement process? Well, that's a little bit of a gray area. Now, they're very fortunate where it is expressly stated that a contract cannot exist for longer than 5 years if this was a lease for government property, real property that's owned by the government. Because if it went beyond the 5 years, you'd have to get legislative approval, and they call that an exceptional contract or something. But so they're very fortunate this isn't for a lease of property. Because without that, there's really no set term on a contract. Okay, it is been the practice. For example, the huge contract to provide food, I believe, at least once or twice a day for all the senior citizen centers, that's federally funded. That was under protest for years, and this was the same procedure that they used. And the courts have actually looked at it, and the courts have not found anything wrong with doing that for a contract that's quite critical. In this case, this contract is critical. I know that they recently changed the law for emergency procurement. That used to be the standard. We'll just have an emergency procurement to continue the contract. I believe with the amendments, that probably would not be very feasible with the changes to the emergency procurement law. So for the last few years, that kind of has been the standard to extend the existing contract for the period necessary for the court to resolve the procurement. I'm not surprised that you initially suggested that this is a basis to argue for a change in the procurement law, because it just allows Graphic Center, they're incentivized to just delay the Superior Court case indefinitely because their contract keeps getting extended. That's correct, and that would take away with that bad motive, if you will.
So has GPA looked at the probability of absorbing this function? Because I think when we had first addressed this, we did talk about GPA absorbing this responsibility and foregoing the contract.
When that was brought up, I believe it was brought up in the first extension. I'm pretty sure it was brought up last year, and I believe it was John Benavente who said that they simply did not have the personnel or the capacity. They did at one point. This is a function that GPA did at one point when it had a much larger workforce. But according to John Benavente, as I recall, last year he was saying that he's got an aging workforce now that's going into retirement, and they just don't have the equipment or personnel to do this anymore at this particular time. But that has come up before. That was their response. That's true.
So GP is not actively looking at that probability, considering these extensions, GPA?
Yes.
We've been actively looking, so we've been asking Xerox company to provide a solution. One of the problems is we could get the machine one, and GWA could use one. The problem is reliability of the Xerox machine. If two is sufficient, if both of them goes down, then we're kind of in a crisis. We can't build. When we were first looking at this, having an outside vendor, especially in US, is much needed. It was almost the cost of doing in-house. and they have backup systems, disaster recovery. So they have all these capabilities. Internally, we could get the equipment, but would it be 100%? Xerox I mean, copier machines are known to jam, be out of service. So that's where we're at right now. So we do have the quotations. It's a matter of what the probabilities of going down and what steps can we do. So we have quotes for Xerox machines, stuffers. So it was something we looked at, but we're not there yet. So this is the process. We also have to hire staff. We don't have staff. Our workforce is barely 409 now. Before it's like 480, 500 employees. Also, what happened was before we moved to graphic center, our mailing was just an envelope with 3 folds that was very expensive. That paper alone is like 75 cents. So, but we moved to we outsourced it. So now they have full printout with colors, bigger font sizes, so people can read, including me, and it's stuff the envelopes. So that's what we want to do. At the same time, they also had the capability to put in stuffers, and we do mail stuffing. With the new one with the Xerox, we're still figuring out how to add the stuffers there. So there's, because printing is not our specialty, so this is something we have to learn. So we're trying to get there. We're still exploring it, but once we figure out smooth process, have a reliable process, then we'll ask for doing it in-house.
John, just real quick, just for clarification, so the initial contract that we keep extending is Graphic Center.
Yes.
Right. So, and then why did Graphic Center file a protest? They already had the bid.
So when we did the RFP, the second RFP, the first RFP, the person didn't have the machines or the experience, but the volume requirement for utilities. If you include GWA and GK, that's over 120,000 envelopes or bills.
Oh, so their initial contract ended and then you went out to bid again?
Yeah.
And since that was protested, you just kept extending their initial contract?
So the second bid is an RFP. So the US vendor were more qualified. They had disaster recovery process just during the COVID. So whether you say if one California got infected and this place is shut down, who can handle it?
Is the Graphic Center contract, is that based on per piece?
Yes.
Are they charging you per man piece?
Yes.
Have you, has GPA looked at, I'm not even sure if you can do it, but I mean, there's some companies are charging like $3 to mail out a bill now. If you elect for a paper bill, if you elect for a digital bill, then you don't get that $3 charge.
Yes.
Are you able to do that?
We do have provide digital bills. I think it's been online for over 3 years.
Correct.
Yes. As for billing, we could do that. I believe all telecom companies charge you $3 for the bill, but that's an additional revenue. I believe we have to get approval from PUC for any rate change.
Right. Yeah. So I'm asking if that's something that you can.
We get something we could definitely look at.
Because it's actually just an incentive to get people to switch over.
Yes.
I understand there's people out there that are not digital savvy, so they want their paper bill.
Yes.
And but if you're paying by the piece, and if you can create some kind of incentive for them to go digitally, then your reliance on Graphic Center or any other company is less. And that might shrink down to how many mailing pieces are you doing today? How many bills do you actually bill out? I mean, regardless if people have digital or not, you're still sending out a bill, correct?
Yes, it's over 50,000 bills.
Yeah, so there's probably like half of those that don't even need their bill. I mean, I paid mine online, but I still get a bill. Afterwards.
Yes, you have to, did you select or no billing?
It's just on an app, it comes on, right? So the bill must come.
Yes.
I'm just saying that you can still go and see it online and pay it ahead of time.
Actually, if you go to online payment, there's an option, say, online billing only,
right?
they will stop sending paper bills.
Okay.
I guess we'll do more marketing on that.
Yeah, what's the education on the training of that?
Yes.
To get that cost per piece down.
Yes.
I mean, to get the units going out down.
Yes.
And then let's maybe create an incentive around it. You know, something, I don't know if you can actually, does it require PUC approval to add on something onto the bill? Whatever's on that bill?
Probably, and charges are mentioned as something that.
I almost feel like after 50,000 customers, 25,000 of them are not gonna need a bill. Easy, I mean, in this day and age, it just seems that, well, maybe. I'm just thinking, right?
Yeah.
And then, and as far as like taking it in-house, if you're gonna have GWA and GPA's copiers, as an ex-Xerox man, it's like, the machines ain't gonna go down. I mean, if they go down, it's maybe one, they'll bring it back up. It's not gonna be detrimental to getting your mailing out, but it's the labor that's intensive. So, and getting it stuffed and getting it right, and it's the accuracy. So running it off of a database or something. So, yeah, I could see sourcing it out. Most people did source it out. It was just too much trouble to take it in-house.
Yes. I mean, I don't mind doing $3 charges, okay with the PUC, I'll propose it to CCU.
But first, maybe there's some kind of educational program as to, you
How
can
to do online.
Maybe it's a sustainability message, you know, save the trees, save the printing, whatever. If you don't really need a bill, you know, I don't know what the message is, but it's just something that, there's people out there that don't want to waste.
Yes, there's something, yeah. So yes, something we could definitely work on. Other things we were floating around was the idea of giving them credit to move to digital billing.
Right. Can you do that without, it's not a...
Yeah, I was, something I had to ask.
Is that a rate adjustment?
Yeah, are we allowed to do that?
It's the opposite of a charge, so
Yes.
I don't know, that's possible too. Yeah, positive.
Yes, we are for doing positive things, yes.
Yeah, definitely look into it.
Yes.
See. Yeah, that's like, that's still 25%.
Anything else? Your motion.
Motion to approve GPA docket 2417.
Joe seconds, all in favor say aye. Aye. The motion carries unanimously. Next item is GPA docket number 2419, petition of the Guam Power Authority to approve a bond issuance to refinance a portion of the outstanding 2014 Series A bonds. We have an ALJ report and a proposed order. Fred?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. This petition seeks PUC approval of a bond issuance to refinance a portion of the outstanding 2014 Series A revenue bonds. At about 5:10 this evening, we received an amended petition on this matter, which did include a copy of the resolution, GPA resolution FY 2024-23, which is fully executed, and I believe was approved on the 28th. So I had pointed out in my report that we did not have that for receiving it. But the second matter, I have a question for GPA. In the amended petition, which was filed tonight, it's about 200 pages. But there was a GITA, a draft resolution, and I still don't have a signed GITA resolution.
Yeah, we did, I just forwarded right before the meeting. We do have a secretary signing it. However, there is a portion say number of yeas and nays. She left it blank. So we do have it, have a signed copy, but it's not complete. So we'll ask Gita to provide that tomorrow morning.
Okay, well, we don't have that in our record yet, so I'll leave it up to the commission. I mean, I'm willing to proceed. And we could do this subject to receipt of the fully executed. Also, I don't have an approval by the governor.
Is this time sensitive? Is this time sensitive?
It is time sensitive. In footnotes 1 and 2 of the amended petition, we stated, like, in footnote 1, I believe the governor's chief of staff said that she will sign it. It's just that she hasn't done it yet, but we're expecting to get it tomorrow. And Tina Garcia of GITA said that the board of GITA approved the resolution and she will send it to us shortly. So as soon as those are available, I will supplement the petition with the final documents. But we just couldn't get it in time for today's meeting, I'm sorry.
So would the commission like to proceed ahead? Okay. And I think your action tonight will have to be subject to receiving signed copies of the GITA.
It needs all the refinancing.
You know, normally in all bond cases, we have those. Those are kind of prerequisites. We decided we could proceed ahead subject to receipt.
I think it's okay. How do you guys feel?
We're here.
We're here. We're going in June, so.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, this is a petition for PUC approval to refinance a portion of the outstanding 2014 Series A revenue bonds. And of course, under the contract review protocol, any issuance of bonds as well as use of bond funds has to be approved by the PUC. In their petition filed in this matter, GPA indicates that they believe they should pursue strategies to reduce debt service payments, and that by refunding these bonds, they can achieve interest rate savings, and this will lower debt service costs. GPA did have a resolution FY 2024-18 that was passed back in February, and that in a general way authorized the issuance of these refunding bonds. But then later on, the resolution that was just passed 2 days ago, FY 2024-23, that's where CCU did approve the issuance of the bonds. It approved various of the bond documents, including the ninth supplemental indenture, bond purchase agreement, disclosure agreement, preliminary offering statement. So those were all approved recently. And then again, the designated officers who can sign on behalf of it. Now, this was done after Public Law 3795 was passed. That was only enacted on May 8th. And the legislature found that GPA does have the authority under its Enabling Act to issue bonds, that it must do so through the agency of GITA, and that they found that based on low interest rates, the current market conditions, the authority expects to be able to refund certain maturities of its outstanding 2014 Series A revenue bonds for debt savings. I think actually they're refunding all of the bonds except for maybe one, I believe, which is 2044 bond, 4% rate. So I think that's the only one that I can tell that they weren't actually refunding. The legislature, as always, it sets forth a number of conditions on approval of the bonds. Of course, one is GITA must approve, PUC must approve. And then there's the 2% rule, which is that the present value on debt service of the refunding bonds shall be at least 2% less than the present value of debt service on the prior bonds, using the yield on the refunding bonds as the discount rate. There are a number of other provisions too, which I outlined in the Of course, as I indicated, GETA authorization is always required. We do have the draft resolution. If executed by the GETA officials, seems to approve this bond. It again also approves all the bond documents that are applicable. Again, preliminary statement, bond purchase agreement, supplemental indenture, etc. It approves all of those also. So to get into the, I guess, need of analyzing this bond refunding proposal, I attached in the ALJ report a May 21st update by Wells Fargo. And there's a page in that report, which I believe is page 8, that's exhibit 1. It talks about, as of that date, as of May 21st, what would be the results if the bond were issued now. And they found that the refunding par, that is the amount that needs to be refunded, is $58,950,000, and the amount for the refunding bonds is $55,620,000. So based on those differences, it was found by Wells Fargo as of that date that there would be a net present value savings, $3,366,490, which would mean net present value savings of 5.71%. So that clearly would meet the 2% standard set by the legislature. It would result in cash flow savings of over $5 million, and an average cash flow savings of about $267,300 per year. Wells Fargo indicated that in the current market, a tax-exempt current refunding of all outstanding bonds, except the 4% 2044 term bond, generates positive net present value debt service savings of approximately $3.37 million or 5.71% as a percentage of refunded bond. I would note that there were two prior Wells Fargo reports that I was made aware of, one on May 8th. At that time, the savings were 5.46%, and on April 15th of this year, 3.22%. So actually, it looks like the savings have increased. That's a positive factor, although it's always hard to predict exactly where it'll be when these go out for issuance. Also, as of May 21st, the TIC, the total interest cost was 4.38%. Now, as to estimated costs and savings, from what I could determine from the material that CFO Kim provided, it seems like the costs are somewhere around $2 million. About $1.1 million for the underwriter's discount, $175,000 for GETA's fee, and a total, including the GETA fee, of about $850,000. I think around $2 million. So I don't know. I think the $2 million is included in the bond issuance amount. There you have it, $2 million costs, savings of $3 million. And also, this refunding, again, is refunding $58 million, I believe. The former GWA refunding is a much larger amount, over $100 million. So they're really probably not comparable. But it does raise a good question of, what is sufficient for these funding? I mean, the legislature has set a really low standard of 2%. Seems pretty easy. But are these all really justified? I guess you could only say here there certainly are some savings. CCU boys do that. Any savings should justify some savings. But I always wonder in terms of costs of the bond issuance as opposed to the net present value savings. At what point, are they really worth it? In the legislation in Public Law 3795, there was a provision which you commissioners have seen in some prior bond issues, where once the savings are determined, actually GPA has to come back to the PUC. The PUC decides what the bond savings will be used for. As to how the savings issue was working. In reviewing this bond issuance, I did review all the documents that I had available, which included preliminary offering statement, the bond purchase agreement, the ninth supplemental indenture. And those all seem to be consistent with similar documents that I've reviewed for in other bond issuances and refunding. I think I already mentioned that the total true interest cost in this matter would be 4.41%. Oh no, that was on the May 8th update, but the most recent update, it went down to 4.38%. So again, the most recent update was more encouraging. Although both the legislature and GPA talk about low interest rates, it turns out that the 2010 revenue bonds had a true interest cost of 4.14%. And then the 2010 revenue bonds, 2012, 4.05. So I don't know, it's easy to say low interest rates, but actually these are still pretty high interest rates. Think about last year, general interest rates up to 8%, maybe 11%. They've gone down this year, but are they really low interest rates? Kind of implicates an issue we'll talk about timing of this bond issuance. Compliance with the requirements of 3795, I believe the requirement was percent is met. As I mentioned, timing. Now, I don't work in the next 30 minutes, but GPA's original petition had a chart which talked about the Federal Reserve and potential changes in the interest rates in 2024. And the chart seemed to indicate that there was a very high probability that the Fed, in various meetings this year, would cut the interest rates. And that's what GPA's petition seemed to suggest. But here we are in June almost. There have been no interest rate cuts this year so far. So again, are they really low? It is possible that in subsequent months that it could cut interest rates. That's what originally was predicted at the beginning of this year, that there could be 4 or even 6 interest rate cuts. But unfortunately, due to inflation, that is not yet decided to cut the rates. So I guess I finally come down and say it's all speculative. We don't know if they're going to cut rates or not. So CFO Kim also explained to me that's not the only factor in deciding when you go out for bond issuance. There are also concerns about the municipal bond market, how it's doing, and also the timing here apparently. Wells Fargo seems to believe that by going out before the presidential election, I think now they intend to go out as early as July 8th, that the investors will have a high appetite for purchasing these bonds. So I guess I won't question experts further and let them figure out the timing. But I still wonder whether we might get a much better interest rate if a federal rate cut came first. But anyway, I think I settled that in my mind to go with the experts. The other problems, of course, why the PUC had to address this tonight, we're not meeting again until the end of July. That's past the date on which looks like they may want to issue to address this issue out tonight. And as I said, there were some positives I noted too in the reports. The fact that some of the factors had been going in the right direction. The net present value savings have been increasing. Now over 5%, whereas it's 3%. But that can change overnight. A month from now, it could be that rate, so it's always hard to predict. On the supplemental, the ninth supplemental indenture, I have attached that to the order for your signatures. You basically read that. I did find that the terms and conditions in the bond documents were satisfactory, and that the ninth supplemental indenture should specifically be approved by you. And there are various other limitations which are included in the proposed order and order approving long-term debt. Two orders that normally have done in the past. So I think I can recommend overall that you do approve. I had some concerns, and the legislature's approved it. I normally feel that the PUC had a very good reason for not following law as enacted by the legislature on the issue.
Thanks, Fred. Don, with the estimated $3.3 million in savings, does that factor in the $2 million in costs to refinance these bonds?
When I spoke to Wells Fargo, they included 2% of issuance costs in this, which issuance costs at 55 million will be close to $1.2 million. As for expenses, gate expense, they said it was by their policies $150, but they included additional like $20,000 out of pocket expenses. We do have to pay for 3 rating agencies for their services. Historically, before bonds were over $100 million, so they were like 60 to 100,000. But this is only exceed $5 million. So I'm not quite sure what the rate is. I'm thinking it's going to be between $30,000 to $60,000. So we also have to pay for ORIC, and also pay for the administration fees for the trust accounts. I think it's going to be less than $500,000 by preliminary estimate, but I told this Brad that it's going to be close to 800 because I'm not quite sure, so I have to put some cushion there. But there might be some other expenses incurred that I'm not aware of. It could be as high as 800,000.
Okay, so that would take down some of the savings that are listed here right now?
Yes.
Yes. So it'd be more like $2.5 million or so?
Yes.
Okay.
It sounds like it's less than, you said at one point, they were charging you $1.7 million?
Close to $1.2 million for underwriting. This is an estimate, but it's already included in its net saving calculations.
And then plus all the additional fees from Guam?
Yeah, additional fees from Guam.
That's going to be another $500,000.
$500,000 to $800,000.
So so 2 million. So we're really only saving 1.2 million.
No, the 1.3 already includes the $1.2 million.
It's already factored in.
It's factored, so by minus 800,000.
What is what's the remaining number of years on that?
So right now, all the bonds expires in 2045, retroactively. 24, sorry. All the bond expires in 2044, 2044.
2044?
Yes, all bonds, we have a 2017 bond. I think they all expire in 20.
And you're refinancing this for how long?
20 years. We're not extending any terms because all the bonds are callable at 10-year mark. So the 10-year mark is on October.
So the same amount of
Yes.
years and it's just lower payments
Yes,
because the interest savings?
yes, it's just, so one is you're reducing the par amount by a couple $1 million. And second, you're also reducing the annual cash payment out. I think preliminary is about 266.
So the $3.3 million will actually be the tangible amount that you have?
Yes, and that's, and the $3.3 million is a net present value using discount rate of 3.38.
So like your cash flow is only like 267,000, is that annual?
Yeah, that's annual.
So overall it's like 5.3 million of cash flow, 267 on annual?
Yeah, so what they said, yes, about 5.3, they're putting about 5.3 cash savings.
So as Fred was talking about earlier about applying where the savings is going, where's your under recovery now?
I believe the last April is about 28 million.
Okay, it's come down a little bit.
Is it,
Will they apply it to this?
no, the savings, the REACT, you're asking about REACT, right?
Just the under recovery, yeah.
Yeah, yes. The REACT under recovery is purely based on fuel. So any operating savings does not go into REACT. Yeah. So the board just approved on Tuesday to make the REACT at 26.195, which maintain the same. And we're predicting next 2 months because when we bought the last fuel just earlier this month, it's about 109 compared to like 135 before and 120. So we're predicting that it will help the under recovery, and provided there's no disturbance, wars and all that, or plus OPEC reducing. And every time the price goes down in December or November, OPEC always cut the production, or in between they feel that price is dropping too much. If that doesn't happen, we're predicting we'll have over recovery by about $2 million by January. And the fuel may stay with us.
Thank you.
Anything else? That's too bad. They were anticipating interest rates moving down several steps through this year, but that just hasn't transpired.
Yes. Yeah, that was, I believe that was prediction was from Bloomberg. They were predicting they will reduce interest rates. The economy really needs to reduce interest rates. Unfortunately, the inflation is still there.
Yeah. Else?
We just wanted to see, there's one from the governor, and one from Ida.
Yep.
Yes, yeah, we did receive the GITA document, but they were missing some information in the form, so we have to ask them to fill those information out.
And I'm like, right there, 3.3 million is like,
We're not going to have a party.
not having, that's going to improve cash flow.
Yeah, a little bit.
As long as there's no hidden fees outside of that, because then, that present value too, so that is really hard to predict.
Yeah, net present value, and that is, it depends what discount rate you're using. If you have a higher discount rate, you have less present value. If you use lower discount rate, you have a higher net present value. So when I ask them, what is your discount rate, they just using it all in interest rate.
all in, you say?
Yes, all in, sorry, it's like, true, all in true interest rate, yeah.
Yeah, 4.38.
Yes.
Go ahead, Fred.
Mr. Chair, if there's a motion, maybe I suggest to make it a condition
Yeah.
on GPA's, your resolution. And perhaps you could sign or tonight, we'll fold it as a PUC.
Thank you.
Okay, motion to approve GPA docket 2419, pending signatures from Vita, completed signatures from Vita and vendors.
There's a second to that motion. No seconds, all in favor, say aye. Aye. The motion passes unanimously. And finally, GPA docket number 2418, joint petition to authorize GPA and GWA to award merchant banking services contract. We have a legal counsel report and a proposed order. Anthony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a very easy one, and I'll do my best. But the bottom line is this has been before the PUC before. Basically, GPA, GWA, and the Guam Solid Waste Authority use merchant banking services, and these services are necessary for them to receive payments via credit and debit cards to pay utility bills. First Hawaiian Bank is a contractor providing these services to GPA, GW, and Guam Solid Waste Authority. And its contract expired on June 30th, 2023. It was extended on a month-to-month basis until a new contract is awarded. On April 25th, 2023, the CCU issued a resolution authorizing GPA, GWA to issue a solicitation for the merchant banking services and to include GS, Guam Solid Waste Authority for a one-year contract period with these four options, which each option to extend for one-year periods for GPA and GWA, subject, of course, to the PUC's approval. The PUC issued an order on June 25th, 2023, in GPA docket number 2318, authorizing GPA to solicit for the merchant banking services. So in October of last year, GPA issued an IFP for the merchant banking services. GPA only received one bid from the Bank of Hawaii. The contract is estimated to cost about $11 million for GPA and $5 million for GWA for the contract's 5-year term. Of course, these are only estimates because it's all based on how many people actually use the merchant banking services by making payments via their credit and debit cards. Now, this is another one where GPA anticipated that the CCU would authorize GPA to award the contract to Bank of Hawaii at the CCU's May 28, 2024 meeting. I did not receive confirmation that that occurred. I'm assuming it has.
Yes, yeah, they approved the resolution Tuesday.
Okay, but I never did receive that. So GWA is a little ahead of you guys by submitting the actual resolution. I did not see the resolution. And so this does fall within the contract review protocol for GPA because their limit is for 1.5 million here. Merchant banking services would cost far more than that. The estimated cost of merchant banking services is reasonable. So prior to issuing the IFP, GPA estimated that its contract cost would be approximately 1.2 million. There was no estimate for GWA or GSWA at that time. Now that GPA has received Bank of Hawaii's bid, the 5-year contract is estimated to cost $11 million at the rate of 2.2 million per year. And it's estimated to cost GWA $5 million at the rate of $1 million per year for the contract's 5-year term. The cost of merchant banking services is dependent, of course, once again, on the number of transactions using debit and credit cards. But looking at last year's or the last time this came before. Basically, in 2017, GWA clearly showed, and GPA also clearly showed a trend that these transactions where ratepayers are using their credit and debit cards to pay for their utilities was increasing and had been increasing. So it's anticipated that the use of credit and debit or credit and debit card services during the term of this contract would increase as well if that trend continues. We also believe that the contract for the services is prudent. GWA for the last contract received the amount of 183 million, and GWA received the amount of 47 million from transactions using merchant banking services just for fiscal year 2022 alone. The contract for merchant banking services is necessary because of the increase in the use of, not only the increase in the use of debit and credit cards, but also in the increase in the use of online services, online payments. So we're also seeing, they are also showing an increase in the use of these online and pay-by-phone payments throughout the period justifying the last contracts. Based on the foregoing, it's my recommendation that the PUC approve GPA's petition to approve the contract with Bank of Hawaii for merchant banking services. I did include a proposed order, and I do recommend that you make the approval, if you are going to, with the same condition they provide you with the actual executed resolution, and at that time, then release the signed order. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. How come only one bank came up for this offer, Bank of Hawaii? Why isn't First Hawaiian?
Oh, no, actually, two proposed, First Hawaiian Bank and Bank of Hawaii. We did a bid, so it's prices everything. So the Bank of Hawaii was lower on the fee, on the transfer fees. They both use same interchange account, interchange fees from Visa, so they publish that annually. As for they were both offered merchant utility rate, so it's 75 cents fixed fee for residential accounts and $1.50 for commercial accounts, fixed fee if they use MasterCard. But Visa, they said they don't have the program for Guam yet, so that's whatever interchange, what kind of card they use, it would depend on the fee.
What is the fee for Visa?
It could range from 1.2% to like 2.2%, depending if it's what kind of if it's like they call it a mileage card or a cash reward card, just like for like 2%, 2% fees. Basic credit cards with any features usually about 1%, 1.2% interchange fee.
Have you noticed, since they've been implementing this, where they allow the government or the agencies absorbing the fees, have you noticed any kind of decline in your outstanding accounts receivable as your billing improved or your receivables improved through federal fees?
Yes. The residential outstanding is actually very good. Days in cash, days turnover is really good. So it definitely helps. In this kind of days, our places don't accept cash anymore. They all accept credit cards. So it's a feature that people it's getting habit, especially with the advent of COVID. Handling cash is becoming less. So and the younger generation are more used to cards or electronic payments.
This is a very small amount of customers that pay by cash?
Yes. It's not as big as before. Even the lobby transactions is very small in the beginning. Most of the transactions are usually in Kaluni, then Ulari. At the end, you barely see people walking. A lot of the transactions also online.
Well, that's good to know. It ties back to the mailing and the billing part. Yeah, if there's a very small percentage that's paying cash, that's probably gonna be the one that you send out bills to.
Yes.
Compared to all 50,000 all the time. So really trying to look into, identifying those customers that really don't need to pay the bill.
Yes.
One, to save the trees, and two, save cost to the utility.
Yes. And we will definitely do more awareness campaign.
Anything else?
I think we need to correct wording. John, you just clarified that you received 2 bids.
Yes, First Bank and Bank Hawaii.
Yeah, there's just in the order, it says that only 1 bid was received. That's correct, and that's based on what was written in their petition. Yeah. Okay, but I can make that correction.
Thanks, Mike.
This is another pending.
That's correct, because they only sent me the unsigned resolution, and we did not receive the actual signed resolution.
Pending the CCE resolution.
Yes, the CCE resolution.
Yeah.
Do we make that contingent on the other one, if they didn't give you the signed one?
Yeah.
Contingent?
Yeah.
Okay. 'Cause he-
Yeah, that was for GPA. Now for GWA, they did, that's why I had this, they did actually submit and file, as I requested, they did a copy of the order. So we do have that, we just don't have GPA's.
There was, yes, item 11, page 3. I think this is on the order, yes. The fifth sentence, where he said, and it is estimated to cost GWA $5,000? Or 5 million?
Yeah, that should be 5 million, sorry. I want to make that correction as well. And just for clarification, did you want me, as I'm amending the order, to include the condition that they have to provide their CC resolution? Yeah, okay, we'll get it.
As long as
The ones that we didn't receive.
Yes.
This sentence, 5 million, you're just striking, you're giving that change to 1 million.
That was 5 million.
5 million.
Just had 3 zeros.
Yeah, the mistake was, it says 5,000, so it's missing the last set of 3 zeros.
Mr. Chair, motion to approve GPA's docket 2418, subject to corrections and signatures from the resolution for CC.
Thank you, Pete. Is there a second for that motion? Bill seconds. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, John. Where's, thank you, Mary Ann. Where does Mr. Benavente this evening? Oh, hi. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Another feeling.
Motion to adjourn? Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Yeah, I did. I heard there's a little bit of.